Hey guys, thanks for joining me for this 60th episode in Season 2 of Good Questions with Cameron Dole. Special guests for this episode include Dr. Kevin Khalili. We'll be talking about his new book, Preserve Your Curves. We'll also talk with actress, producer, and mathematician Danica McKellar about the third installment of her mystery franchise, MatchMaker Mysteries, The Art of the Kill, which premieres this Sunday. We'll also visit with contestant and executive producer from MTV Challenge All-Stars, Mark Long, talking about the series available now on Paramount+. We'll also visit with Margaret Josephs. You know her from Real Housewives of New Jersey. She's got a new book to talk about, Caviar Dream's Tuna Fish Budget. Of course, if you would, please take the time to subscribe, drop a like, comment, leave some feedback, and share with your friends. Now, ready to smell like the most delicious hippies in town? Well, yesterday was National Grilled Cheese Day, and in honor of the holiday, Kraft invented grilled cheese incense. Yes, if you burn it, it smells like grilled cheese. Now they're giving away 1,000 sticks, and if you want to win one, you can enter by tweeting the hashtags BreatheTheCheesy and Sweepstakes by Thursday. Our next guest on the podcast is, going to help us talk about avoiding doing serious harm to your bodies. It's a new book called Preserve Your Curves. We've got author Dr. Kevin Khalili with us today. And first off, Dr. Kevin, thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm trying to get the word out. And, here's the painful truth. And it's the reason why I did this book in the first place. It's literally every single day, millions of Americans are unknowingly paying to get injured, and it's completely avoidable. And so when I mean paying to get injured, they're paying when they go to their yoga class, when they go to their Pilates class. And yoga and Pilates is kind of the root of almost all exercise. So even when they go to personal training or some CrossFit or anything in that genre, there is a vulnerability for developing an injury. And when you're paying for something, taking, time out, and particularly when it's in a controlled setting, injuries should never occur. Whereas, when you're doing a sport, it's unavoidable, because it's not predictable. But in a controlled setting where you're paying and you're being watched and guided, I saw a lot of patients injured from all kinds of fitness, but particular yoga and Pilates because of their popularity. And it's why I spend most of the time in the book talking about those two things.
We were talking before we came on the air about my wife having an injury from a cough, and it seems kind of funny when you talk about that, but so many the things that we see as small day-to-day things can really cause injury if you're not careful about how things are, how your body is in place, right?
Oh, 100%. I have a whole section in my book that has things that we do day to day that we know aren't good for us. And ironically, we're duplicating those same motions in yoga and Pilates. And so, I have graphs and areas that show that clearly. And then when you go and do it in a yoga class, somehow they validate it. But, motion is motion. And so it's very important that we, standardize the do's and don'ts of all motion, regardless of the setting.
And in your studies, what have you found to maybe be some of the most impactful movements that are affected or cause the injuries that we're talking about?
Well, most people have basically in your spine, it's like a coil. Mm-hmm. And there's 3 curves. And most people are compromised in those curves because of the day-to-day, because of how we sit. And so when you already start out in a compromised curve, let's say, so to speak.
Right.
And you do a motion that makes that curve even worse. And so I call it, the curve in your spine is there for a reason, just like the spring of a coil.
Right.
And when you lengthen, this is said a lot in yoga, when you lengthen the spring, you're actually taking out the coil. So I have a saying I often say, we don't want to spoil the coil. And so even they say this in class because, I do yoga at least 5 days a week. And, but I modify the poses. And when you never, ever want to lengthen the coil in your spine because most people are already lacking coil. So you want to induce the spring, induce the coil. And I guarantee your wife, if we did a screening on her prior to that unfortunate event, we would have saw some kind of vulnerability because obviously just coughing and doing a movement shouldn't put her out for 3 days. So I'm glad she's feeling better, but I would encourage you to see someone with my credential. And, I walk through it in the book easily and show who you need to see and why. And we're an international organization. So, I also going to say this disclaimer, we're not accepting patients in our office. This is not a come see me talk. This is about, the share, the care, making people aware about this message. And fortunately, we are an international organization and you can see someone like me and it's a one-time visit to understand your vulnerabilities, or I call it your spinal blueprint. And then you'll know the do's and don'ts for the rest of your life.
And what was the spur that got you started into this endeavor, delving into and finding out more information about the injuries and the avoidance thereof as well?
So, a lot of people would say, who's watching this, they would say, well, those people just weren't doing yoga right. Well, I thought that too. Because I admit, when I first started this, I wasn't familiar with yoga. I was just always thought it was supposed to be good for you and was kind of puzzled why people were coming in injured. Mm-hmm. And then maybe I thought, well, they weren't doing it right. But then I started seeing a number of instructors, the people actually training people how to do this, who were getting injured. And when that started happening on a repetitive basis, I started to wonder, well, maybe there's something wrong with yoga itself. And I looked into the motions further, and then I discovered, unfortunately, that depending on the class you take, I would say 30 to 50% of yoga, I know this is shocking, can cause potential injury to your spine. Or shoulders or knees. But on this book, we're focusing on the spine since that's the most common injury in yoga and Pilates. And that's a shocking, alarming number. So that is the painful truth. I walk through the book holding your hand with 160 different pictures so that people can see clearly, what areas to avoid for most people. This is a one size fits most book. It will apply to about 95% of the population. As I said earlier, I encourage everyone to get a one-time evaluation to know who they are. We are all different. And speaking on that topic, when you go to a class and there's 20 people in a class, does it really make sense that we're all doing the same thing? We're all individuals. So it's kind of like your internist giving the same prescription to everyone. No, of course not. They do a thorough evaluation. They do, laboratory analysis, and they're treated individually. And ironically, that's how yoga started out. The first chapter in the book, I cover a little bit about the history. It was primarily a one-on-one art. So that's why I encourage people one-on-one, learn who they are, and then you can go into a group setting and learn how to adapt for your particular body type. So I call it move right for your body type. And then the beauty happens. So even though I may be talking some things against yoga, I'm also yoga's biggest fan.
Right.
I want to promote yoga. I want to grow yoga and Pilates. They're both beautiful systems that just need to evolve with the science that we know today. It seems that it has just been grandfathered in 5,000 years old without any checks and balances. And, I think we would all agree everything should evolve. Everything needs checks and balances. And the science is clear now. It's completely clear about what we should do, what we shouldn't, in terms of health for the spine.
And how much importance should be placed on the preparation before you go to yoga class, as far as avoiding of injuries as well?
Yeah, I talk about that you should do an ample warm up, and I use one particular study in the book that says when you work out in the morning, there's a 300% increase in likelihood of developing an injury.
Wow. Just
from not being prepared. So like with me, I take always a hot shower before I go. I run through, gentle range of motions. I show up to the class early, do some warm-ups there before we even start the class. But, I give different examples of different warm-ups people can do, because you're absolutely right. You just don't want to jump out of bed and go and do these extreme motions.
And also along those same lines, you have to also talk about the diet as well. What intake you've got to prep your body for that as well.
Yeah, I believe in eating. I have a saying that goes, "Eat 95.5 to thrive to 105." So what does that mean? 95% plant-based. 5% indulgence, whatever you want to do, and then thrive to 105, meaning to 105 years of age. Now, that's a simple slogan I came up with, analyzing all the different centenarian cultures around the globe. Mm. And that was kind of the common denominator. They mostly eat a plant-based diet, and because of that, fewer diseases, living longer, and thriving, not just living, thriving. And some live beyond 105. But I think if we follow a plant base, it's a good start. But we have to do it in the right manner. Eating processed plant foods is not what I recommend. Whole foods, local if you can, organic, non-GMO, and use lots of variety. And so this is where people get it wrong when they go plant-based or vegan. Sugar, chemicals, artificial dyes, all vegan. That's not healthy, obviously. GMO food is vegan. So, people misinterpret these things, and that's why a vegan diet gets a bad rap or a plant-based gets a bad rap, because you can mess it up, and so it needs to be balanced. And so I suggest people seek some kind of guidance in that realm too, to help them. We as a society have not perfected the wonderful flavors of eating plant-based. We're just used to eating a certain way. And I myself, growing up in the South, born and raised, Texas, Oklahoma, I was meat and potatoes, and I swore I'd never eat like those people. I was like, there's no way I'm going to give up my meat. And, but backtrack, when I was younger, in my teens and 20s, chronic allergies, fatigue, brain fog. And I'm 51 now, and I can tell you, being plant-based, feeling the best of my life, the fittest of my life, and just have this energy and this focus. And I was like, wow, I wonder if I would have started out that way. But it took me a while to figure it out. and being in my field and learning and questioning and trying to searching for the truth, that's what I came up with. And it wasn't, again, it's not my message. It's what everyone around the globe that's doing successfully. You're going to have the carnivores versus the vegans, and each side's going to show a pile of studies. I don't care about that. I care about, well, what are people doing and thriving around the globe? That makes more sense to me, because unfortunately studies can be slanted. You know, they want a desirable outcome to prove their point. This is the flaw of certain studies. It's good to read them, but just know who's ever paying the big dollars for the studies usually want a particular outcome to sell their product or service. So I like looking at sociological analysis of what people are doing. And so you have the popular meat carnivore diets, and I look at, well, let's see. Back then, people lived to maybe about 30. That doesn't get me excited. You know, it's like, you give me 1,000 studies, at the end of the day, people live to 30. So, and you know what? There's not one centenarian culture on the planet that is a carnivore-based diet. So, one, personally, not only was it how I feel, but I did blood laboratory analysis to show how I improved too. Kidney markers, inflammatory markers, cardiovascular markers, all improved. And so did my own little self-study. So anyway, so to your point of what we should consume, because that's very important. That's our energy. That's our fuel.
Right.
That's our future. That's our prevention. It is absolutely essential, based on who we are, to be primarily plant-based.
And Dr. Kevin, if folks want to find more information about the book, about the lifestyle you were talking about as well, and of website, where's the best place to find all that information?
So it's just my name, drkhalili.com. So it's drkhalili.com.
All right. Well, Dr. Kevin Khalili, it's been great to spend some time with you today, and got a few tips there as well. When my wife gets home for lunch, we may have a visit about it.
There you go. Thank you so much for having me on.
Now, do you feel like planting yourself on the couch today and just never getting up? Well, April 13th does have that effect on people. A career website called Zippia just analyzed the laziest days of the year from 2020, and they found out that last year, April 13th was number 1. Now, it was the day after Easter last year, so that probably had something to do with it, but still, if you feel like being lazy today, there is a precedent. Now, the rankings are based on how many people were searching for things like no motivation to work and no desire to work. And all of the top 5 laziest days last year were Mondays. Number 1 was April 13th, the day after Easter. Number 2 was July 6th, the Monday after 4th of July. Number 3 was June 22nd, the Monday after Father's Day. Numbers 4 and 5 were 2 random Mondays, June 8th and July 27th. Now, the laziest months of the year overall were August, October, September, July, and November. Now, the least lazy were March, February, January, December, and April. Got another installment in the MatchMaker Mysteries series that is coming up this Sunday on Hallmark Movies and Mysteries. We've got our good friend Danica McKellar back on the line. And Danica, good to visit with you again.
You too.
Now, Danica, the third installment, how hard is it to keep these fresh as the new installments come around?
Oh, it's so fun. Okay, so Matchmaker Mysteries, The Art of the Kill. This is our third Matchmaker Mysteries movie, like you said. And each time it's a new mystery. It's a new dead body. It's a lot like Murder, She Wrote. So my character is Angie Dove. I play a professional matchmaker. I've got my matchmaking TV show called The Matchmaker with Angie Dove. I'm not a professional detective, but I'm really good at reading people, and I'm very observant. So I'm actually very useful when it comes to solving murders. And just like in Murder, She Wrote, I have a knack for stumbling over dead bodies, and I have a knack for actually solving the crimes as well. What's really fun and different about this movie is the man who plays my father, Bruce Boxleitner. he has a much bigger role in it. He plays a retired detective, and in the past movies you've seen him mess around with hobbies like painting and Zumba and trying to figure out like what he's going to do with his spare time. Well, he decides to actually do some stuff that he's good at, and he's helping the art museum to investigate some thefts that have been happening. So while he's doing that, I meet him for lunch, and lo and behold, we stumble across a dead body. Detective Kyle Carter, who is the homicide detective in all of the movies, another thing about this movie is that our relationship is sort of developing. There's always a will they, won't they, and this time things sort of progress to potentially another step along the way.
Now, Danica, how different is the set look now as opposed to last time you guys were running through the mysteries?
Yeah, well, everyone has a mask on. I mean, it doesn't really feel that different other than everyone's wearing a mask. And we try to, I will say that there aren't as many, like, crowd scenes. Like, they keep people a little farther apart when there's, a lot of extras there. But otherwise, it felt pretty normal.
And Danica,
of course, I had to quarantine for 2 weeks beforehand, but the actual experience on set was pretty normal. Tested once a week, and not a big deal.
Now, the pandemic, I know everybody's been trying to find ways to keep their kids entertained as well, and I know that McKellar Math, you've been doing things there, and I noticed the TikTok that you put out about a week and a half ago as well. I mean, how much does that be therapeutic for you as well?
Which TikTok are you referring to?
The one where you didn't want to mess up your makeup with the mask.
Oh, yeah, I know. Well, look, a lot of us women have experienced this. You put on gloss and your makeup, and you're like, oh, darn it, I got to put a mask on now. And, and it's like, it's going to mess up your lipstick, but I'm going into that store, I got to put it on, and so I just thought I'd do a TikTok about that because I thought, well, this is relatable. And it really was. It really did in that moment, and I was about 5 minutes early to this appointment I was going to, and I was like, oh, I'm going to make a TikTok about this. At least if I have to wipe off my lipstick, I'm going to get something out of it. I'll get a TikTok. Yeah, TikTok has been fun. I don't have a lot of time for the TikToks, but when I get inspired, then I'll do one. And look, I'm an entertainer, so if I have the opportunity to entertain people, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, you're not going to turn down an opportunity, right?
I can't. I constitutionally could not.
Now, we talked to McKellar Math, and what's the latest that you got there? I know you're always putting books and resources out as well.
Yeah, so I've been writing math. So I have a degree in mathematics. I took a break from acting a while back to get my degree in mathematics at college at UCLA. And I love entertainment and I love math. I really do. I think it's so good for your brain, and I do love solving puzzles, and I know the value of developing your mind, and doing math is like going to the gym for your brain. So I very much encourage kids to pursue math and to really take the opportunity while you're in math class anyway. Use it to get your brain sharper. Use it to develop your problem-solving skills. So I've written a whole bunch of entertaining math books for ages 0 through 16. So as early as when you're a baby and good night numbers to high school geometry. And you can find them all at McKellarMath.com.
That's good. And again, the MatchMaker Mysteries, The Art of the Kill, that comes up Sunday night, 8 Eastern, 7 local time on Hallmark Movies and Mysteries. And Danica, always want to give you a chance to let our listeners know where to keep up with everything you've got going social media-wise as well.
Yes, well, I'll be live tweeting for the premiere. And so find me on Twitter for that. I'm at Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. It's all at Danica McKellar, also TikTok. And for Matchmaker Mysteries on Instagram, I also have an account for Matchmaker Mysteries. So that's just at Matchmaker Mysteries. You can see all sorts of behind-the-scenes videos and pictures and find out more about the movie there.
All right. Well, Danica, always great to visit with you. Looking forward to the new installment coming up on Sunday. Hope you have a great rest of your week and look forward to talking again real soon.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Now, I haven't used much trigonometry lately, and I also haven't had the chance to have any important in-depth conversations on symbolism and tests of devril. So I guess I was right to ask my teachers, when are we going to need this in real life? Well, according to a new survey, 83% of parents think that schools should spend time teaching important life skills to go along with all the standard academic stuff. And here are the 10 life skills we wish we'd learned in school. Number 1, how to save money. Number 2, how to budget and organize your finances. Number 3, how to invest. Number 4, how to take care of your mental health. Number 5, how taxes work. Number 6, how to be confident. Number 7, how to cook basic meals. Number 8, how to start a business. Number 9, how to buy a house. And number 10, how to create a resume. Challenge All-Stars, now available on Paramount Plus, and from that and so many other things. Mark Long on the line with us this morning. And first off, Mark, thanks for taking the time.
No worries. I like to say I'm coming into you hot and ferocious from Orlando, Florida, the old southeast of America. So I'm happy to be going through the Oklahoma waves, as they say.
There you go. There's not a lot of them these days, that's for sure.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, Mark, tell us a little bit about Challenge All-Stars. Obviously, it started back on the 1st, and what's it been like, the reception? I mean, obviously, as you start something new, you always wonder about that, right?
Oh, we brought back 22 veterans of the original series, and they were cast standouts. They had huge personalities, and I wanted to show that although these cast members are mothers, fathers, a lot of them are north of the age of 40. They can still compete. Their personalities have only gotten better, and they can still get down and dirty and show the youngsters how it's done. The response has been amazing. I in my wildest dreams, I knew there was an audience from when I did the tweet and got the response in the Us Weekly articles and stuff. But the reaction I've gotten has been so overwhelming from the fans and the press. The most shocking was Barstool Sports, who doesn't like much. I'd like to say that. They called the first episode perfect. Yep. They said it was a master class in what reality television should be. So coming from them, who I've been a fan of them for a while, and just People Magazine, Us Weekly, Yahoo. I mean, it's been great. So I'm thrilled.
Now, this time around, executive producer added in your responsibilities. And Mark, how much pressure did you put on yourself to really reinvigorate the show?
Well, it's funny you said that, because I started kind of having that executive producer hat when we were flying down to Argentina just to start the show, because we had to quarantine first. And I don't know if a lot of the cast members haven't been out in a while, but they got so rowdy on the plane on the way down. The pilot said, listen, if you guys don't settle down in the back, we're going to have to land this plane in Houston. And I was like, guys, we got to settle down, because we can't have the show not happen before it starts. So I was always worried something was going to happen that caused a hiccup or kind of a rock in the road, but we made it down. Everyone stepped up. The personalities not only were there, they were there times 10, which was great. And the fans have just loved it. And the soundtrack of the show is 90s. It's classics. It's great.
And for you, what was the hardest part in the midst of COVID, pandemic, shutdowns, and all that? As executive producer, what was the most difficult part of getting this to airwaves?
I think the most difficult part was obviously, we had a huge medical presence during quarantine and on set. So it was just keeping everyone healthy. We did COVID checks every morning. So before you go do breakfast, you do your COVID test. So make sure everyone that was inside our kind of NBA bubble was healthy, including the cast as well as the crew. But it was just, once we got down there and we were in the house and we knew that we were kind of separated, because we weren't, we really didn't see many people, if not anyone, for the whole time, except the cast and crew. So right. It was nerve-wracking getting us in the house, because a lot of hiccups could have happened. But once we were there, I could kind of exhale a little bit, knew we were protected and knew we were safe. So, but it was definitely, it was on my mind from when we left the States going down there until we showed up at the house.
And obviously, with everybody being shut down as we've been in the past year, bringing some excitement, a little competition. How cool is that to bring a little liveliness to folks' lives as well?
Oh, the thing about the show, I think that what people are gravitating to is, I've had so many people say they just put on the show and they smile the whole time, because the music's great. It's really fast paced. Some of those characters that you've grown up with over the past 15 or 20 years, the Cyrus Beth Trichelles that people know from one name. You kind of feel like they're familiar, and it's way more organic to watch than something that's forced and you don't know who these people are. It's kind of like watching, cousins that you've grown up with, and you can relate to them instantly right off the bat. And I think that's the most fun people are having is, during all this craziness, you can sit back, watch it, and it's not difficult to figure out. We're competing for a lot of money, $500,000, and you'll see, may the best man or woman win.
There you go. Now, we mentioned it's on Paramount Plus, and speaking of that, what has been your worst or best binge over the last year?
Oh, God. I'm trying to think. Believe it or not, I'm like a huge murder mystery documentary guy. So if there's any type of documentary that gets released or any type of Dateline-esque spinoff, I force my girlfriend to watch it. She's like, "Why are you always watching these things?" She's like, "What do I need to know about you?" I'm like, "I just love real comedy. I mean, not real dramatic detective stuff. That's what I love." So if that's it, I'm in, baby.
There you go. Well, Mark, I want to make sure and let everybody know where to find more information, not only about the show, but also everything you've got going social media wise as well.
Yeah, you guys can find me. I'm at the Mark Long, TheMarklong on Instagram, Twitter, all the same handle. So I'm very active on there. And I also have a Instagram, Twitter called at We Want OGs, meaning we want the original gangsters, but it's We Want OGS. I have a lot of clips, a lot of behind the scenes stuff on there too. So follow me. I'll follow you back. And you guys are going to love the show. I promise.
That's good stuff. Well, Mark, it's been great to visit with you this morning. Hope you have a great rest of your week, and hopefully we'll catch up again real soon, brother.
You too. Thank you so much.
Now, are you ready to really put a test to the definition of the word salad? Well, there is a recipe on the Food Network's website that's going viral right now for a salad that uses popcorn and mayonnaise and vegetables. Now, to make crunchy snap pea popcorn salad, you pop some popcorn, then sprinkle it with white cheddar flavoring. Then you whip up a bowl of mayonnaise, sour cream, vinegar, sugar, and Dijon, and add snap peas, carrots, celery, and popcorn to the mix. Now, the Food Network host who created this salad is Molly Ye, and she says it's a, quote, riff on an iconic Midwestern dish. It's so Midwestern, so quirky, and so delicious. Now, most people talking about the recipe on social media, well, they have to say that they believe they disagree. You might know her from a small show called Real Housewives of New Jersey. We've got Margaret Josephs on the line with us. And first off, Margaret, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Cameron. So excited to be here.
Now, tell us, when did you know that you had a book or a story to tell? I'm sure this is something that, did it take a little while for somebody to pull it out of you?
Well, you know what, Cameron? I always felt I had something in me because I've been on Housewives in New Jersey. Everybody knows about 25% of my life. And I had a big life before I got on the show, about 3 other ones. So I said, there's so much out there about me that people don't know. And everybody writes to me, how did you grow up with Marge Sr.? Tell us about your first marriage. So I was like, you know what? Let me just write a book. It's COVID. Let's get one out there.
And Margaret, for you, was it hard to pull some of those old memories back? Or do you think that was good for you, maybe therapeutic in a way, to put stuff down on paper as well?
I feel like it was very therapeutic. It was painful, but I said also cathartic. Some of the things I think I buried deep inside, but when I started talking it, I worked with a co-collaborator and doing it, it felt good to do it. I mean, listen, there was a lot of crying involved, Cameron. I'm not going to lie, but it felt good.
Now, for you to be able to inspire others by your story, I mean, never quitting, no matter what the circumstance was, how cool is that for you to share with others, to let them know no matter what the circumstance is, they can make it through?
Well, I feel like it's important to share because I feel so many people operate out of fear or are victim of their circumstance, and bad things happen to everybody. I always say I'm not from the Lucky Sperm Club, and a lot of things happen to people in their childhood, and you're not responsible for what happens to you in your childhood, but you're responsible as an adult to fix it. And I think I am a good example of that. I have resilience. And I think to show everybody how I've dealt with that can help them possibly deal with what they're going through and realize that they can make it through and to not let anything hold them back. So it was important for me to write that.
And how much strength do you draw from rehashing those memories, those hard times, and realizing what they made in the end, what you're living today?
You know, when I read back and I read everything that I've been through in my life, sometimes I can't even believe it. So it did make me feel much stronger and much better. And I can't believe how far I've come. I mean, some of the stories I can't believe. I've had some of my college friends reach out and they have said, oh my God, I remember when that happened. And we had dinner the other night. I've had so many people reach out to me who've lived through these things with me and are just like, Marge, I can't believe where you are now. And which makes me feel great.
With all the depression, all of the mental fatigue everybody's had this last 12 months, I mean, what have you been doing to keep your mentality sane, if you will?
Well, the first 2 weeks of the pandemic, I ate like a maniac nonstop. I'm not going, and packed on the pounds. That was the first 2 weeks. But then I said, you know what? Let me use this time to think of new ideas, started writing the book, coming up with ideas and thinking, what am I going to do next? What's important in life? We're going through a very bad tragedy in our country. Mm-hmm. People are suffering. And what's the next thing I'm going to do? How am I going to pivot? And what do I value in life? And it's the relationships. How am I going to work differently? What am I going to do? And I think that's what I did to keep my mental stability. I was blessed to have some of my children home with me. They were able to work from home. And that's what I did. And I think it's important to know that, this is a period in time where you can pivot your life and think of what's important. And I thought of some new business ideas, which was important. I mean, listen, I was losing money left and right. My business, people weren't shipping goods. Mm-hmm. I was having financial issues with my company to the fact is people weren't shipping anything. Everybody was going through something, but I was just like, we're going to get through this. And what am I going to do next? And that's what it is. I kept my eye on the future and what's going to happen next. And that's really what I did during the pandemic.
Yeah, you mentioned pivoting, and I think that's what so many of us have had to do, pivot the way that we do things. And how much does the landscape look different as we approach a new normal for you?
Yeah, I mean, the landscape does. The one thing is I did always work from home. I always ran my business from home, and I have an amazing team of women that work with me. The landscape does look different. Listen, I had a clothing line before. No one's buying clothes right now. Everybody's wearing athleisure, right? I don't have an athleisure line. Maybe I'm going to go into athleisure. So my clothing line went dead. I had a luggage line. No one's traveling. Mm-hmm. The luggage line isn't selling. So the landscape is different to the fact is it inspired me to do a mocktail line. I don't drink. It says right in the book why I don't drink. My mother drank too much when I was young. I don't, mm-hmm. I find it, it makes me anxious if someone gets too drunk. I'm at a party. I'm always drinking a cranberry juice or an iced tea. So it inspired me to come up with a mocktail line. So you know what? The landscape is that I'm going to focus on things that make me happy, come up with something that is going to be good for other people. And I'm just going to work on doing new business ideas and what really makes me happy in life and is good for my family.
That's good stuff. And again, the book, Caviar Dreams, Tuna Fish Budget. Margaret, I want to make sure and let folks know where to find more information about the book and, of course, everything you've got going social media-wise as well.
Oh, yes. You can follow me at The Real Margaret Josephs on Instagram. MargaretJosephs.com has everything about my book, where you could find me on my virtual tour. Caviar Dreams, Tuna Fish Budget is available at Simon & Schuster, on Amazon, at Target, at Barnes & Noble, and also on my website, MargaretJosephs.com. And you can also find my company, Macbeth Collection, on Instagram.
All right. Well, Margaret, it has been great to visit with you this morning. Looking forward to spending some more time with the book, and hopefully we can catch up again real soon.
Yes, Cameron. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thanks again for joining me for this 60th episode in Season 2 of Good Questions with Cameron Dole. If you ever have a comment, question, anything else you'd like to know, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at GQ with Cam. If you'd like to help out in the funding for this podcast, click over to the Shop tab at gqwithcam.com/shop. If you have a special guest idea, you can email me, gqwithcam@gmail.com. Again, thanks to Brandon Allen for coming up with our music. We're going to let him play us out. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday.